After I covered the cost for my wife's dental school for 6 years, she gave me divorce papers at her own graduation party. And when I said no to signing them right there like some loyal dog, she made a mistake so disastrous that it wrecked everything she'd spent years planning. I'm Brian, and this is how I went from being the guy who gave up everything for his wife's dream to the man who watched that same wife lose all that she thought she'd won. 6 years ago, my wife got into dental school, and I made a choice that seemed good at the time, but turned out to be the biggest mistake of my life. I told her to focus only on her studies while I took care of everything else: the rent, the bills, her tuition, her books, even her car payments and insurance. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week as an IT project manager, taking every overtime shift I could get, missing lunches to save money, saying no to promotions that would have required travel because I needed to be home to support her. My friends started having game nights and weekend trips that I couldn't join because I was either working or too tired to function. And slowly, one by one, they stopped inviting me completely. I told myself it was for a short time, that once she graduated and started making that doctor salary, we'd travel together, buy a house, maybe start a family, and I'd finally get to breathe again. But somewhere around year 4, she started changing. She became far away and cold, spent more time studying at her friend Sophia's apartment than at home. And when I tried to talk to her about it, she'd yell at me about the stress of school and how I couldn't really understand the pressure she was under. I believed her because I wanted to believe her, and I kept telling myself that once graduation happened, once the stress went away, we'd get back to being us again. The graduation party was at this fancy event venue downtown, the kind of place with valet parking and waiters wearing bow ties carrying trays of champagne, and her whole dental school class was there, along with their families and partners. I'd bought a new suit for the event, my first new clothes in probably 2 years, and I was truly excited because I thought she'd finally see everything I'd done, maybe even thank me in front of everyone for making her dream come true. Instead, about an hour into the party, she took me aside toward this outdoor garden area where it was quieter, and I saw her friends, Sophia and 2 others, watching us through the window with these strange smirks on their faces. She gave me a manila envelope, and when I opened it, I found a full set of divorce documents already filled out, already notarized, just waiting for my signature. The world seemed to spin for a second, and I remember asking her what this was, like maybe it was some kind of cruel joke, but her face was cold and serious in a way I'd never seen before. She told me that she'd grown past me, that she was a doctor now, and I was just some IT guy. And then she said the words that are seared into my brain forever. She said, "You're not on my level anymore, Brian. You should date someone more like-minded, someone in your own league." The way she said it was so easy, like she was suggesting I try a different coffee shop, and I could hear her friends giggling through the window behind us. She really expected me to sign right there, right then at her graduation party, probably so she could party for her freedom with her classmates the moment I walked out. But something in me just became clear. I looked at her standing there in her expensive dress that I'd paid for, holding her champagne glass, surrounded by the success that my hard work had built. And I told her I wasn't signing anything. Not tonight, not without knowing what was really happening, and that she didn't get to write the ending to my story anymore. Her face went from confident to confused to angry in about 3 seconds, because clearly she'd never considered the possibility that I might say no. Watch until the very end to see how this shocking story ends. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this one.
And she started lifting her voice about how I was being difficult and unreasonable, but I just walked away. Left the party, left her standing there with her unsigned divorce papers and her shocked friends staring through that window. The next morning, she showed up at our apartment without telling me, saying she needed to take some things and stay for a few days while she planned her next move. And she was acting like this was all fine, like she could just hand me divorce papers one day and move back in the next. But I'd spent the whole night thinking, lying awake in our bed that suddenly felt too big, and I'd understood something important. The lease was only in my name because her credit had been bad when we moved in 3 years ago, and by law, she had no right to be there anymore. I told her she could take her personal items, but she couldn't stay, that this was my apartment now. And she absolutely went crazy, screaming about how I was being petty and cruel and vindictive. But she left because deep down she knew I was right, and she had no legal place to stand on. In her hurry to get out, probably planning to crash at Sophia's place and rethink, she forgot her laptop sitting on the kitchen counter. And that's when I found everything. 6 months of text messages with some guy named Chris, who she'd met at a dental conference. Messages talking about how she couldn't wait to be free, how I was just a stepping stone, how she fooled me perfectly and I never even saw it coming. There were talks about her secret bank account with over $30,000 that her parents had been sending her as so-called emergency money throughout school, money she'd never told me once in 6 years. There were messages with her friends planning exactly how this graduation party fight would go, how quickly I'd signed because I was so predictable and passive, how they'd all go out dancing afterward to have a party for her new life without me dragging her down. I took photos of everything, backed it up to 3 different cloud services, printed paper copies, and called a divorce attorney first thing Monday morning. And when I showed him what I'd found, he actually smiled and said, "Your wife isn't just leaving you, Brian. She's been running a con and we're about to blow it wide open." That's when I saw this wasn't just about a divorce anymore. This was about justice, and I was going to make sure she understood exactly what happens when you use someone's love like a business transaction. But I had no idea that the very next evening, someone would knock on my door with a plan that could have ruined everything I was building. A plan that would show me just how far she was willing to go to win this battle she'd started. The person at my door was Sophia, my wife's best friend from dental school, and she was wearing a tight dress that left absolutely nothing to the imagination and carrying a bottle of wine that I knew cost more than my weekly food budget. She had this fake, concerned look on her face and told me she was worried about me, that she knew I must be going through such a hard time, and that she'd found something of my wife's in her car that she needed to give back. But her eyes were doing this strange thing where they kept dropping to my lips and then back up. Every alarm bell in my head started sounding, because Sophia had never once been nice to me in the 6 years I'd known her. She was the one who'd made jokes about my cheap clothes at parties and said my wife could do better. And now, suddenly she was at my door playing worried friend like we'd been close this whole time. I let her in because I wanted to see where this was going. Call it curiosity or maybe just being tired from everything that had happened. You have to see what happens next in this incredible story. Remember to like and share this video.
And she right away started holding my arm while talking, leaning in way too close, saying about how hot it was, even though it was like 60 degrees outside, and asking if I had anything cold to drink in this sultry voice that was absolutely silly. She kept moving the conversation toward how lonely I must be, how my wife had treated me so badly and I deserved so much better, how any woman would be fortunate to have a guy like me who was so dedicated and hardworking and clearly very attractive. And that's when I noticed her phone was placed on the coffee table with the camera facing right toward the couch where we were sitting. That's when it became clear, like a light switch in my brain. This wasn't a friendly visit or even a real trick. This was a setup. My wife had sent her best friend to try to trick me, or at least make it look like something wrong happened so she could use it as proof that I was the one who cheated, that I was the bad guy in all this, that she was right in everything she'd done. I almost laughed at how foolish they thought I was, like I wouldn't notice a phone recording or wouldn't see the most obvious honey trap in history. And I looked directly at her phone camera and said loud and clear that I was thankful for her concern, but I wasn't interested in any kind of relationship or close situation with her, that I was focused on my divorce case, and she should probably leave now before this got any more uncomfortable. The look on Sophia's face was absolutely amazing, pure panic mixed with embarrassment because she realized I'd understood the whole plan, and now she had nothing to show for it except a recording of me politely saying no to her. And she grabbed her phone and almost sprinted out of my apartment without another word,
not even caring to take that expensive bottle of wine she'd brought as a fake item. I immediately called my lawyer and told him what had just happened, every piece of the attempted setup, and he told me to write down everything and be prepared, because if they were trying this hard to create false evidence, it meant they were hopeless and desperate people make mistakes, big mistakes that we could use against them. 2 days later, I got a Facebook message from someone I hardly knew. Caroline, another woman from my wife's dental school class who I'd maybe talked to twice at parties, where she'd seemed nice but quiet, definitely not part of my wife's main friend group. She said she needed to meet with me, that it was important, and she couldn't say more over text because she didn't know who might see it. And usually I would have ignored it because I was scared after the Sophia incident, but something about the message felt real, urgent in a way that seemed different from Sophia's obvious trap. We met at a coffee shop way across town, somewhere far from anyone we knew. One of those small places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. And the moment Caroline sat down, she started crying. Not big sobbing, but quiet tears, like she'd been holding something in for way too long and finally had the chance to let it out. She told me she couldn't be part of this anymore, that what my wife was doing was wrong and she couldn't watch it happen without saying something, that she'd been unable to sleep over it for weeks. And then she handed me a flash drive that she said had everything I needed to know about what was really going on. That night, I plugged it into my laptop with my hands actually shaking because I had no idea what I was about to find. And what I found was worse than I'd thought. You won't believe what was on that drive. Keep watching to find out. Please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to see it.
Pictures of group chats going back months where my wife was the main person. Messages where she was telling Sophia on exactly how to trick me and make it look natural, what to wear, what to say, how to place her phone for the best angle. There were voice memos of my wife laughing about how easy it would be to control the divorce in her favor, how judges always took the side of women anyway, how I was too foolish and trusting to put up a real fight. Bank statements showing that her parents had been sending her $2,000 a month for the past 3 years as extra money that she'd hidden from me. Money that was supposed to be for emergencies, but that she'd been saving for her escape plan. And most shocking of all, text messages discussing how to create false evidence of me being controlling or abusive. Conversations about changing the locks while I was at work and saying I'd done it to trap her. About saying I'd threatened her even though I'd never shouted at her in 6 years. About having Chris pretend to be a fair witness if needed. They planned every part of not just leaving me, but destroying my good name in the process. Caroline's message at the end of the flash drive said she'd watched my wife become someone she didn't know anymore. Someone cruel and smart who treated people like chess pieces. Who turned this divorce into some kind of contest where winning meant completely wrecking me, and that I deserved to know the truth, even if it hurt Caroline, her entire friend group, and social circle. My lawyer looked at everything Caroline had given me, and his whole attitude changed from professional confidence to something almost hunting. He'd gone from thinking we'd win to knowing we were going to absolutely destroy her in court. Because what we had wasn't just evidence of infidelity, but evidence of secret plans, fraud, and attempted tricking of the legal system, which judges absolutely hate. He filed urgent motions, requested quick hearings, and suddenly my wife's perfect plan started falling apart faster than she could control, like watching a sandcastle get hit by a wave. I found out through people we both knew that Chris had left her right after he found out about the divorce case. It seemed he'd only been interested in a successful dentist with money and a steady life, not a woman in the middle of a messy divorce who might come out of it with nothing. And without him supporting her, her whole dream future just disappeared like smoke. Her friends started moving away from her one by one because Caroline had seemingly sent them all copies of the same evidence she'd given me, showing them exactly how my wife had been using them as tools in her plan, lying to them about what was happening. And suddenly, the group of help she'd counted on just disappeared. Her parents called me suddenly, which was absolutely unreal because they'd always treated me like I wasn't good enough for their daughter, like she was choosing less by being with some IT guy instead of a doctor or lawyer, and they apologized for not seeing what was really happening.
They'd been sending money because she told them I was financially controlling her, that she needed an escape fund for her protection, and they were shocked to learn she'd been lying about everything while using both their money and mine. The divorce case turned into a complete disaster for her. Every lie she'd told was revealed in court documents, every manipulation plan documented with screenshots and voice memos, every hidden asset found and listed by forensic accountants my lawyer brought in. Meanwhile, Caroline and I had started talking more, meeting for coffee every week, and what started as her feeling bad about being part of my wife's circle for so long turned into these long conversations about life and dreams and what we actually wanted from our lives to come. And I realized I was talking to someone who actually paid attention, who actually cared about my answers, who treated me like an equal instead of a stepping stone to something better. 6 months after that graduation party confrontation, my divorce was finished, with terms that surprised everyone who knew about the case. I got the apartment, the car, 60% of our total assets, including a piece of that secret account her parents had funded. And she got a bad name in her professional circles that followed her everywhere she went because word spreads fast in the dental world. Caroline and I started dating officially about a month after the divorce was final. Not because she was some quick replacement, but because somewhere in all that darkness, she'd been the one person who chose to do the right thing even when it cost her everything. And that kind of person is rare, the kind you build a life with. A year later, I proposed to Caroline at the same coffee shop where she'd handed me that flash drive, got down on one knee right there between the mismatched chairs and local art, and she said yes while crying the same quiet tears she'd cried that first day. But this time, they were happy tears, and she was smiling through them. We planned a small wedding, nothing special, just 50 people at a garden venue, the people who actually mattered to us and had supported us through everything. And I thought maybe, finally, I could end this chapter of my life and move forward into something better. But then my wedding day arrived and I learned that my ex-wife had one final move left, one last hopeless attempt to rewrite the story and make herself the victim. And it was going to happen right in front of everyone I loved in the most theatrical way possible. The dramatic wedding crash is next. Watch until the end to see how it finishes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.
The wedding venue was this pretty garden space with string lights everywhere and flowers that Caroline had chosen herself. Exactly the kind of simple, elegant setup that she'd wanted about since she was a kid. And we'd kept the guest list small, maybe 50 people total, just close friends and family who'd actually supported us through everything and knew the full story. The ceremony had been perfect. Caroline looked absolutely amazing in her dress, with her hair done up and these little flowers woven into it. And when we said our vows, I actually meant every single word. Unlike the first time I'd stood at an altar making promises I thought were forever. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without waiting for the next bad thing to drop. We were about halfway through the reception, right after our first dance to some song Caroline had picked that made her cry happy tears, when I noticed some noise near the entrance and saw our venue coordinator, this professional woman we hired to handle details, trying to use her body to block someone from coming in. My stomach dropped because I recognized that voice even before I saw her face, that special pitch and tone that I'd heard a million times before. And suddenly, I knew exactly what was about to happen. My ex-wife pushed past the coordinator and walked unsteadily into the reception area, wearing what looked like a wrinkled cocktail dress that had definitely seen better days, something she'd probably worn to clubs back in dental school. And her hair was a mess, her makeup was blurred like she'd been crying for hours, and she was clearly not in any condition to be crashing someone's wedding. The music stopped completely. Conversations died mid-sentence, and every single person in that garden turned to look at this woman who just rushed into a private event uninvited. And I felt Caroline's hand tighten around mine, but her face stayed completely calm, almost strangely composed, like she'd been getting ready in her mind for this exact possibility for weeks. My ex-wife's eyes locked onto mine with this full of need intensity, and she started walking toward us, wobbling slightly in her heels on the grass. And she was saying my name over and over like it was some kind of special word that would fix everything, like if she just said it enough times, I'd remember who we used to be. She dropped to her knees right there in front of the head table where Caroline and I were sitting, dirt and grass making marks on that wrinkled dress, and started this long, confusing speech about how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, how she'd thrown away the only man who ever really loved her, how we were meant to be together and this wedding was wrong. All of this was wrong. I was making a terrible mistake. She kept saying she'd changed, that losing everything had made her realize what actually was important, that Chris had been a mistake and her friends had been bad influences and she'd been unable to see. But now she could see clearly, and she was asking on her knees me to stop this, to call off the wedding, to come back to her and give her another chance to be the wife I deserved, the wife she should have been from the start. The entire room was frozen in this terrible silence, watching this scene happen like it was some kind of reality TV show or dramatic movie. And I could see some of Caroline's relatives looking uncomfortable, probably wondering what kind of trouble they'd walked into and whether they should leave. Part of me actually felt sorry for her in that moment because she'd lost absolutely everything. Her relationship with Chris had crashed and burned. Her friend group had left her after the truth came out. Her reputation in the dental community was destroyed because word had spread about the divorce details and the attempted fraud, and it seemed she'd been struggling to build a list of patients because nobody wanted a dentist who was known for being manipulative and dishonest. But then I remembered that graduation party, remembered her cold eyes when she'd handed me those divorce papers, remembered every single text message on that flash drive where she'd laughed about fooling me and called me stupid and predictable. And any feeling sorry I might have felt just went away like water on hot pavement. I stood up slowly, walked around the table while everyone watched, and looked down at her, still kneeling on the ground with mascara dripping down her face. And I said one word, just one single word that held everything I needed to say. I said no. Not no with an explanation or reason, not no with anger or emotion or even happiness, just a simple, calm no that made it absolutely clear there was nothing she could say or do that would change my answer, that this chapter was closed and locked and she wasn't getting in, and no matter how much she cried or begged. She started crying harder, reaching for my hands with her own trembling hands, saying she'd do anything. She'd go to therapy, she'd make it up to me, she'd spend the rest of her life proving she'd changed and become a better person. But I just stepped back and nodded to our security guy, who we'd hired for this reason, because Caroline had worried something exactly like this might happen. He was this big professional bouncer type who Caroline's brother knew from his gym, probably 6'4" and built like he could carry a car. And he came over and very gently but firmly helped my ex-wife to her feet and started leading her toward the exit while she was still crying and calling my name. Her voice got quieter as he walked her out, changing from desperate pleas to broken sobs. And then the door closed behind them and suddenly she was just gone, taken from my life as completely as if she'd never existed. The moment that door clicked shut, Caroline stood up, walked over to the DJ stand, and took the microphone with this incredible composure that made me fall in love with her all over again. And she spoke to our guests with this perfect mix of grace and strength. She thanked everyone for coming, said she knew that weddings can bring up complicated emotions for people, especially those who might be struggling with their own lives, and suggested we all get back to celebrating because she just married the love of her life and nothing was going to ruin this day that we planned so carefully. The applause started slowly, but built into this loud ovation, people actually standing up and clapping like they were at a concert. And just like that, the stress broke, and the party continued like nothing had happened. People started dancing again, the bar reopened, and life moved forward the way it always does.
Later that night, after the reception ended and we were alone in our hotel room with our shoes kicked off and Caroline's hair finally let down, she told me she'd actually thought my ex would show up. That she'd seen the social media stalking and the sometimes drive-bys past my apartment building in the weeks leading up to the wedding, and she'd prepared herself mentally for some kind of fight. She said she wasn't scared by it because she understood the difference between someone who loves you and someone who just hates losing. And my ex-wife had proven for sure which category she fell into with that desperate scene in front of everyone. We spent our honeymoon in Hawaii. 2 full weeks of actually relaxing and being happy without looking over our shoulders or checking our phones every 5 minutes. And when we got back, I completely cut off contact with my ex on everything. and made it clear through my lawyer that any further contact would result in a restraining order and possible legal charges. I heard through the rumors that she'd moved to a different city about 3 hours away, trying to start over somewhere people didn't know her story or what she'd done. And honestly, I hoped she found some kind of peace someday. Not for her sake, but for mine, because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Caroline and I bought a house 6 months after the wedding, a real house with a yard and room to grow and maybe someday space for kids if we decided we wanted them. And we started building the life I'd always pictured, but with someone who actually appreciated what I brought to the table instead of seeing me as temporary. The strange truth wasn't lost on me that I'd sacrificed everything for someone who saw me as beneath her and ended up with someone who saw me as an equal partner worth fighting for. Sometimes the universe has a strange sense of humor about these things. My ex-wife kept my last name for almost 2 years after the divorce before finally changing it back, and I found out later through a person we both knew that she'd done it because she thought keeping it might leave the door open somehow. Like maybe I'd see it as a signal she still considered us connected and might change my mind. But that door had closed the moment she handed me those divorce papers at her graduation party. And the version of me who would have taken her back, who would have forgiven anything, who would have sacrificed himself again for her happiness, that version died in that garden while her friends watched through the window and laughed. The man I became after that, the one who said no, the one who fought back, the one who found Caroline and built something real and lasting, that's who I was always supposed to be. And my ex-wife's biggest mistake wasn't just thinking too little of me. It was giving me the shove I needed to finally see my own worth and stop accepting someone who saw me as less than I was. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. Press like and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories on Reddit Stories Rewind.